So I recently got a GoPro. That's what you're viewing this with. And I'm gonna try it out. I don't know, I've never used the GoPro before, so we'll see how it turns out. Recently I was watching another YouTuber here on YouTube named Ross the Oliver Man. Some of you have probably seen his channel. He actually subscribed to me. I thought that was pretty neat, and hopefully he'll see this. If you haven't seen Ross, I'll put a link in the description for his channel. He makes some pretty good content. Anyway, he recently made a series called Tractor Tales, or just, you know, the stories of his tractors, and I thought that was pretty neat because every tractor that's here on the farm, it has a cool story. So I wanted to go around to each individual tractor and talk about what they are and where they came from. So we're going to start with the 1947 Farmall H. My grandparents purchased this as their very first tractor when they bought the farm in 1985. They purchased it up in town. This guy from Canton had it brought to town for an auction, and my grandparents just happened to be there and bought it. The previous owner had purchased it in Havana, Illinois, and that's as far back on the history that I know of it. I don't unfortunately know where it was sold new, but I had to imagine it was in the Havana area. So this tractor has spent the majority of its life right here on this farm, and just recently I repainted it. It needs still the decals put on, a new grill emblem, and a few little things that haven't come in the mail yet, and some touch-up paint in places. But it's not meant to be a really nice restoration. It's just meant to be a fun thing for the 40th anniversary of the farm. Repaint the H. So that's the 1947 H. This is the first tractor that I got running on the farm back in 2020, and I use it all the time. Man, I do love driving around this old little tractor. Next up is the 1952 Farmall Super M. This isn't a Louisville Super M. This one was built in Rock Island, and it was the second tractor my grandparents purchased. This one's really cool, and I know almost all of the history on it, so we're going to spend a little more time with it. I want to go over some of the features it has. It has live hydraulics. This two-way valve, I believe, is a two-way valve. It's not plumbed up that way, but it's there. It's got a 3-point on the back. We'll look at that more in a second. Come around this side of the tractor. It has a Charlin power steering pump. That is fantastic to use. I love that a lot. A little tiny feature, but that is an M&W clutch extension bracket. And then an M&W air filter. That's a paper air filter that works in tandem with the oil bath filter. This tractor has a lot of power. It's deceivingly strong for its size. Here's a look at the 3-point. That works pretty well. My grandfather put in a lot of posts on this farm with this 3-point and a post a little bigger. Like I was saying, this tractor is deceivingly strong, and I pulled out one of the spark plugs and put a borescope down into the engine, and I did see that it has an M&W piston kit in it. So that's pretty neat. It's just kitted out with all kinds of features. So for the history, this thing still has its dealer tags on it. So this tractor, I believe, was sold at Dubit Courtney Company in Edelstein, Illinois. I know that's hard to read, but I'll try to throw up a picture of this tag somewhere on the screen if I can find a picture, and you might be able to read it a little bit better. But I believe it was either sold there new or refurbished, like redone, at that dealer. And then it worked at a farm close to me, a few miles to the east. And around here we have a lot of strip mine ground, so a lot of farms were bought by the strip mine and the strip mine for their coal. And then after the strip mine's done, it sells them back to the original farmer if they want the land. So in this case, the strip mine bought part of this farm, but part of it was still farmable. So this tractor stayed on and it farmed. And then in 1977, the land was bought by a guy named William Rutherford, and he turned it into an animal sanctuary. And the land came with a bunch of strip mine ground and this original farm. And on that farm was this tractor. So he started this animal sanctuary. And in 1986, they had a sale for excess equipment. And my grandparents went and bought this and got it delivered to the farm, and it's been here ever since 1986. This was my grandpa's big tractor for a long time. I have a lot of pictures, I'll throw some up on screen, of him doing just all kinds of work with this thing. Having the 3-point was really great, really made it a useful tractor. So that's the 1952 Super M. So next is the 1956 Farmall 300. This is a pretty neat tractor. It's painted like a 350, but it is in fact a 300. This one has power steering, live hydraulics, and a fast hitch. We'll look at the fast hitch in a moment because there's something I want to talk about with that. This is a really great tractor, runs really good. My grandfather rebuilt the engine in it when they bought it in 1987. So, runs really strong. I mean, the engine was rebuilt almost 40 years ago, but it doesn't have that many hours on it, so it's still really healthy. It has, these are actually kind of rare, 38-inch spin-out rims. I think that's pretty neat. I've only ever seen one other 300 that has these on it. Come back here, flip the seat out of the way. There's the fast hitch. If you look at this fast hitch and you know anything about internationals, this is not a 300 fast hitch. I think this came off of maybe like a 400 if they matched, or a 460. It's a later model fast hitch, so I think that's kind of neat that this isn't original to this tractor. This was the last tractor my grandfather ever drove before he passed away. He was raking hay with it. So, it's got some sentimental aspect. They all do. I mean, every tractor does, but this one more so. Because it's the last tractor they ever drove. But, this tractor was owned by the Princeville Cannery Company, Joan of Arc Canning Company. They take in a lot of pumpkins from Morton, Illinois, and they can them up. Back in the day, back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, the Princeville Cannery grew a whole lot of green beans, asparagus, and other vegetables, and they had a fleet of tractors. This was one of them, and this tractor has to have an ungodly amount of hours on it. It is pretty wore out overall, and I know using it at the cannery, they had some workers that most likely abused the heck out of it. So the tractor has this Schwartz wide front end on it, and it's set out pretty wide. I measured it, and this thing is 9 feet 9 inches wide, so it's a big tractor. And my grandfather really wanted it. Well, one, it was cheap, and two, it had the wide front end. We have a lot of hills around here on the farm, and for mowing hillsides, raking hillsides, whatnot, needed a wide front end because these narrow front end tractors, they can get kind of sketchy. So my grandparents bought this in 1987 from the cannery. I don't know if they had an auction or something, and that's where it came from, or a private sale, but they bought it from them. The engine was bad, and it came with, I believe, a fast hitch 2-bottom plow, a sickle bar mower, I want to say, and a brush hog, which the brush hog is still here. But I think it was like a total of $600 that they paid for everything, but this was in 1987, and then had to rebuild the engine. But here it is, and it still runs. I actually have a picture of this tractor shortly after they got it, and right here on the, what is this, hood piece, it says 16, big letters, so I imagine 16 was its number at the cannery, because they had a rostering system. But here it is. I rake a whole bunch of hay with this tractor. It's super fun. It's got such a nice tone out of the exhaust, which the exhaust pipe is kind of blowing in the wind. I do need to either get a new manifold or tap it. So that's always fun. There's always something to fix on these old tractors, but yeah, this one's super user-friendly. The power steering is really nice. The wide front end is very nice, and it's actually quite comfortable. So that's the 300. So we'll cover this one real quick. This is the 1940 Farmall H. This is the oldest tractor here on the farm. You've seen it a whole bunch in YouTube videos, and the reason I bought this is because it has an M&W 9-speed transmission. There's the knob and the linkage that controls the transmission inside the transmission. It gives it 4 extra speeds, making it a 9-speed. So I bought this from another YouTuber, Grumpy Shop Teacher. I'll link his YouTube in the description. He originally, I believe, picked it up at an auction in Iowa. So that's all the history I have on it. Bought it from Grumpy out near Macomb, and he bought it from Iowa. So not much history on it besides that. I think this tractor is gonna head on down the road. I don't think I'm gonna keep it much longer. I had my fun with it, but I think it's time for someone else to enjoy it and work it. I just have too many tractors, and I'm trying to cut down on my expenses, and this is kind of on the chopping block. So we'll see. This might be it for it at Gringold Acres, but this has been a really great tractor. I love raking hay with it. That 9-speed is just so handy, but I really have no emotional attachment to it, so I don't know. It might be time for other things, but that is the 1940 Farmall H. We'll talk about this poor tractor here real quick. This is a Massey Harris 50. Yes, a Massey Harris 50. 1956, I believe, if I remember correctly. I bought this a few miles from the farm from a guy that had it, and he had it real cheap, and I said, you know what, I'll take it. This one actually ran when I bought it, but I've done some stuff to it since to make it run better. The main issue it had was this rear rim is basically gone, and the PTO seal was out of it, and it was just dumping fluid. So I fixed that, and I have yet to fix the tire. I did use this some over the summer. I got it right around the same time that I got the 1755 Oliver, and I used this to rake hay and a few odd jobs around the farm before that rim totally gave out and the tube got a hole in it. And it's just sitting right here waiting for me to get a new rim for it. It's power adjust rims. I think it's a 1128 rim. Look at that. So I need to get a new one of those, swap the tire, because the tire's in good shape. Swap it with a new tube, and I'm just going to use the heck out of it. This tractor, I wanted something low down to the ground, like this more industrial forward 8-end style, because there are so many hills here, and sitting up high on a tractor kind of gets me nervous. I really wanted something low down, and this tractor fit the mold, so I went ahead and grabbed it. It's got 6 speeds, a regular transmission, a high and low transmission, 3-point, and a 2-stage PTO. So not a full live PTO, but a 2-stage. You can use it as a live PTO. So this tractor, really handy. It honestly beat my expectations. It's really powerful. I'm really glad I bought it. So we're going to talk history real quick. This tractor was actually kind of a hot topic of discussion in a Massey Harris Ferguson group. This is a Massey Harris 50, okay? It has a Massey Harris tag. The serial number matches to a Massey Harris tractor, yet it says Massey Ferguson on it, and it was sold in Preempton, Illinois at Dune Implement Company, which sold Massey Ferguson. And as far as I can tell, this tractor was never painted Massey Harris orange, gold and red. It has always been Massey Ferguson red and silver. So I don't know if someone out there is kind of an aficionado on Massey Harris Ferguson. Right at 1956, that was kind of when the merger was happening. Please let me know if you have any information on this, because I think it's really neat that this tractor has a Massey Harris serial number and the distinctive Massey Harris concave hood, but it's a Massey Ferguson. I don't know. Kind of cool. Hopefully it'll stick around. So this is the newest acquisition on the farm. I actually went and picked this up a few days ago. out near Monmouth, Illinois. It is an Oliver Rotoflow 62T baler. I really have wanted an Oliver baler for quite some time. I think they look super cool, and people say the Rotoflow feed is really a fantastic method of feeding hay into the bale chamber. It's basically like a sidebar rake, the way that these tines rotate and push hay into the bale chamber. And another cool thing about these 62s is look how short this hitch is. Most of the balers, you know, and my international square baler come all the way kind of out to here, and they have a really long shaft. But this, I don't know, super short. Built here in Illinois at the Oliver Shelbyville plant, and it actually has its original dealer tag. I was so happy to see this. Sold new at Rural Implement Company in Macomb, Illinois, and they sold Alice Chalmers, Oliver, New Idea, and Jeeps. Isn't that neat? You could go buy a Oliver square baler and a Jeep on the same lot. Pretty cool. This thing, it doesn't work just yet. It needs a new knodder here. This knodder is busted. If I can source a new knodder, I'll replace it, get the knodders working, and this thing should make some hay. We'll just have to see.